Ladies and gentlemen, right now, in early March 2023, we will be experiencing a very tragic moment in chess history, as Magnus Carlsen, best player arguably of all time, will be playing his last few classical games of chess as the world champion. You see, on April 7th, 2023, the next World Chess Championship will begin, and Magnus Carlsen has declined his participation, and so the throne will be contested by Jan Nepomniachtchi and Ding Liren. And so, Magnus is playing in what's called the Norwegian League, which is a team format event. And he's going to be playing a few games. In today's video, I will be covering his first game, and then I will cover the last two games that Magnus Carlsen plays as the reigning world chess champion. And in today's video, Magnus Carlsen played against Levi. Some of you think my name is Levi. That may or may not be true. Let's take a look at this game that Magnus played against Levi. Levi, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, and the Norwegians don't have that, crazy name. His full name is Levi Andre Talaksen, and he is a 20-something-year-old FIDE master. I think he might even be 30. He's a 30-year-old FIDE master from Norway, obviously, Norwegian League. And this is going to be a really interesting game. Obviously, it's a lopsided matchup, but I'm always really interested to see how Magnus defeats really damn good players. Like, Levi's better than all of you. He's better than me. But how does Magnus beat these guys? How does he make it look so simple? I literally made a separate video about that a long time ago called Magnus Carlsen Beating Chess Masters. E4. And what would you do if you had to sit for 3 hours across from Magnus Carlsen? I mean, would you even last that long? E5. All right, so already very professional. He's not going for the Caro, some stupid opening, Scandinavian, Sicilian, some stupid opening. They're all good openings. Plays E5. Knight F3, Knight C6. Already big, by the way, huge mistake by Magnus. I mean, Vienna. I don't think this guy would have expected a Vienna gambit, but, and a Spanish, right? Like, if you're going to sit down and buckle up and play 3-4 hours of chess, you might as well go to the Spanish opening. Levi plays A6, bishop A4, and now knight F6, main line. Castles, bishop E7, and now we have already the first wrinkle. You see, Magnus really likes to take players hand by, he likes to hold their hand and then cross the street and then push them in front of a car. He doesn't do that to old ladies. With the old ladies, he crosses the street. Magnus will go hand in hand with you to the land of chess theory, and then he will just drop you off at a random bus station and leave you on your own. The main line here is just rook e1. Rook e1 is a very simple move. It defends this pawn. Black oftentimes will go b5 and delay the movement of this pawn. And this is what Magnus actually plays with black in order to play what's known as the Marshall Gambit. And sacrifice this pawn, which we're not going to get into. But Magnus plays d3. d3 is not as popular as the move rook to e1, and the reason is rook e1 is much more flexible. White wants to play c3 and d4. That is what you want to play in the Spanish. But when you play the move d3, you are completely 100% admitting that at least for the time being, you're not going to play d4. You're going to play a completely different type of Spanish. Here's the problem. Magnus probably can recite about 50, if not 100 games historically that have gone d3, like modern games by Caruana, Anand himself. This is the thing about these top guys. Do you know how much theory I know after d3 and just how many historical games? 0. I can name a grand total of 0, and I'm an international master, okay? I don't know who the hell gave me that title. Again, the idea is to go back to b3, and normally, if you're going to play like this, there's a very trendy modern way to play the Spanish, which is to play a3 and then knight c3. And a good friend of mine, Mr. International Master Alexander Ostrovsky, used to play like this. He is also the manager of the Gotham Knights Pro Chess League. Buy our merch, GothamKnights.com. And he used to, that is not our website. That is not our website. GothamMerch.com. I don't know what the heck you're going to get on GothamKnights.com for legal reasons. If you go there, you get a virus. Not my fault. A4, though, from Magnus. So he doesn't play this A3, knight C3. He plays A4. A4 is already asking a couple of unpleasant questions to the black position. Taking is silly because white will just recapture. Look at the size of the evaluation. I mean, you gain 2 just from a pawn trade. That's insane. Point is, you're going to go here and here. It's very tough to actually stop that. and black just has a very bad position. You can play b4. b4 is fine, but white is going to win a lot of light squared equity with knight d2. You can play rook b8, and if you play rook b8, then after this white is going to control the a file. So instead of all that, black goes here. Thus far, he is playing all the best moves. But if at this point Levi was like, well, look at this, I'm equal with Magnus after 8 moves, you know what he would actually be Max Deutsch. You guys remember that video? Oh, I was actually doing really well against Magnus in the first 8 moves. Yeah, it's the Ruy Lopez. Like, if you're losing in 8 moves in the Ruy Lopez, you should probably take up checkers or mahjong. Bishop b7 intends to defend the rook and obviously fight for the center in the future. And in this position, Magnus officially drops off Levi at the bus station in the bad part of town and drives away in his Ferrari and plays knight bd2. No one on planet Earth has ever played knight bd2 before. That is an exaggeration, but it is significantly more rare than any other move in this position. The knight goes here. That is just normally what happens. Like 90-something% of the games, the knight is going there. Or you start with rook e1, knight bd2 is definitely a sideline. And like I said, Magnus will happily go with you there, but now you're going to be on your own, knight bd2. By the way, you'll notice that Magnus spent 5 minutes. So he didn't spend 5 minutes because he didn't know what to do. He knew absolutely what to do. All right? He knows all those games, but guess what? In 2023, even at the rating of 2300, your chess openings rating can be like 2600. Like, if you're very well prepared, you spend, 5-6 hours a day on openings. Opening prep is great. What happens when you get out of theory? Why is the knight going to d2, right? Why is the knight going to d2 and not c3? Like, is he not interested in fighting for the d5 square? If the knight is going to d2, it's not going to come out there. Maybe he's going to rotate it around this way, but then what, right? Still, like, white can get no real advantage if he doesn't play the move d4. I mean, isn't that the whole point of the Spanish? So what is Magnus going for? All right, the guy plays d6. Now Magnus plays c3, so he doesn't even play rook e1. He plays c3. Wow, okay. The idea of c3 is twofold. Number one, you want to prepare d4, but number two, you want to bring this bishop back to c2. That's another very important idea. And again, this might look really stupid, but why would white play bishop b5, bishop a4, bishop b3, bishop c2? This is why I tell people not to play the Spanish. It's not because, I mean, you can play whatever you want. I don't care, all right? I do not care about that stuff whatsoever. The same way I don't care about what you wear, religious beliefs and so on. I grew up in a very tolerant household and city and so on. Like, just be a good person. At the end of the day, your actions, dictate what my judgment of you. So I don't care if you play the Spanish. I don't care if you play the Vienna. But it's just, why 4 of your first 11 moves are moving a bishop like you don't even understand how to play chess. But you do. It's all meta strategy. So bishop c2, right? Now you're going to go here, and now black plays this move c5. Knight a5 and c5 is a very well-known idea in the Spanish. Don't worry if you don't know it. And the point is that you're just kind of fighting against this, and maybe you want to play b4. Now we see this move rook e1, and the idea will be to rotate the knight to f1 and g3. By the way, what type of position is this? Open or closed? It's a closed position. How do you know that? Both sides have 8 pawns. You know if a position is closed or open by buying my Middle Games Masterclass. No, just kidding. By the amount of pawns there are, because think of pawns like a fence. If both sides have 2 fences up, you're not going to see your neighbor's yard. If you have holes in your fence, you're going to see plenty of the neighbor's yard, right? So closed position, knight f1. And now black has multiple moves. The move h6 here has been played, although it's a very vague move and not really clear why you would play this move. But it's actually kind of important to prevent white's bishop from going to g5. Why? Because it can't really go much else. The bishop on d2 is like not scaring anybody. And on e3, the bishop can just be a target for the knight. So, I mean, also, you cannot really play d4 because you significantly destabilize the e4 pawn and also knight c4. So the bishop doesn't really have a great home anywhere, which is why the computer, after some thought, deliberates and thinks h6 is pretty reasonable. Levi plays queen c7. Now we have knight g3, bishop f8, and now we have bishop g5. And the move bishop f8, the computer did not fully bless. Again, it wanted black to go here, but it's very difficult to play that move considering Magnus has a couple of very aggressive and just unpleasant ideas coming your way. So we have bishop f8, bishop g5, and now white is on the verge of actually just straight up winning the game. You may say, what? What are you talking about? Where's the win for white? This. Winning for white on the spot. Why? You shouldn't trade bishops for knights, right? More often than not. In this case, though, the opening of the king is devastation, and... Oops, I jumped backwards. The opening of the king is devastation, and the light squares are game over. Knight h4, you can move your king out of the way. I'll play queen h5, I'll put my knight here, I'll bring my rook. Nobody can stop mate. I've isolated the king, I've sealed off the rest of the castle. The queen, my horses, and my tower are now going to beat the king up, okay? That's what we're gonna do. So, seeing that that is coming, Levi plays knight to d7, and Magnus here plays a move none of you could predict. Now, if this was classical in, like, Tata Steel, I don't know if Magnus would play this move, but he plays the move h4. That is a spicy move. All right? h4 played. All right, he played it very quickly, too. Computer not blessing it. Wants him to come back. Target that knight. Black can come back. Black is going to play d5. h4. And I got to give it up for my man Levi here, who plays d5. Now, notice how Magnus played this move h4 in like a minute time. He gets 30 seconds when he makes a move, but h4. My man Levi got hit with h4 and thought for 13 minutes. He was like, holy... Because you just got to make sure, you know, h4 is not just going to teleport and take your king like ChatGPT. d5. There is a saying in chess, okay? When you are faced with an attack on the edge of the board, strike back in the center. It's almost always a good idea. Open up that center, right? Start to fight back. If pawn takes d5, we go bishop takes. Life is going to be good. Magnus just plays h5. h5. Now, what would I do here if I was playing black? I would play h6. I got no plan. My plan is you got to move your bishop, and now you can't play h6. I don't know what my plan is after that, but I would probably play h6. Levi not shook, though. For the folks not in that age demographic to understand what not shook means, shook means afraid. So now you know. He's not shook, all right? So he plays pawn takes e4, and plays f6. Now, f6, I can't bless. And he didn't spend a whole lot of time on that move. I mean, again, it was not too late to go here. I don't know why he played f6 and not h6. I think he was just like, nah, there's no attack. Also, it's the Magnus effect. You're playing Magnus, so he plays f6. What's wrong with f6 is that the light squares, right? It's a massive commitment. You now cannot go back here, and White's bishop can just retreat, and you don't really have to attack anymore. So I'm not really sure what Levi didn't like about this move h6. I haven't had a chance to ask him. It happens, right? It's just like a bit of a... Again, I don't know what my plan is after. I'm not saying I would have figured it out, but c4, knight c5, like you have... But it's scary. Listen, this is not easy to deal with. The engine just goes here, like losing a pawn, all right? And then apparently black is doing well. But f6 is a big commitment, right? f6, Magnus drops back to e3. Now, what's juicy? That's juicy. That's juicy. That's juicy. That's juicy. A lot of juicy. I could already see that being a clip. Someone's going to cut out what I just... And they're going to put it out and be like, what does Levi think about? And then that's juicy. I mean, listen, it was all juicy. c4, all right? Black is trying to attack like this. Here's the problem. Not only does White now have this knight h4, knight f5, he also has h6 anytime he wants it. Now, this is, again, the reason why Black had to go here. Because this move, you now do not have knight h4. And if you play bishop e3 and try to play knight h4, I can get to your bishop. And the thing is, if I can just trade a few of your pieces, you ain't attacking anybody. All right? So that is why it was very important to force the bishop here, because when it wasn't forced to go there, here comes Magnus, right? Literally, you just got to move one pawn wrong against Magnus, and like the whole thing's done. He's like a really mean mafioso boss. All right? You do one small thing, you're dead. You're excluded from the movie. They just kill you off. Knight c5, and now queen g4. I told you, the queen and the horses, right? Bishop's got good pressure on everything. You would love it if the bishop had x-ray vision. Knight a b3, and he's like, well, let's trade rooks. Either your rook goes away or your bishop slides back and is passive. All right, you go here, terrific. Let's keep it moving. Knight gf5. The computer here says bishop takes, What? Why would you give away the bishop for no reason? It's such a scumbag. I don't even understand. Knight gf5. Now, why would Magnus move this knight and not this knight? If he moves this knight now has no role. Literally, white is stuck. So by playing this knight and getting pinned, you still have movement. This knight could potentially go there, and that's why you can play moves like h6. If g6, you can always consider sacrificing. In fact, I'm fairly certain this is going to win you the game. I just don't see it yet. Check. You got at least 3 pawns. You're probably going to win. So bishop c8, rook d1. He has now activated his rook on the entire file. The knight, the queen, the knight, this bishop, the h-pawn. This bishop sucks, but whatever. I mean, can't have everything. Right, like that rook has an open file. I hope when we compare the two, it's like not similar. Knight e6 back. And now Magnus takes the knight. Now he takes the knight. What's funny is he thought for 20 minutes here. And actually, rook d1 may have been a little bit too slow after knight e6. I think that's what he realized. I mean, he's got tons of pressure, make no mistake. His position's absolutely fantastic. But maybe he could have just gone h6. Maybe he just could have gone for it. Of course, if g6, you sacrifice, right? But maybe black is going to take the knight. And if you play knight takes f5, now suddenly you actually don't have anything to sacrifice. So if you can't do that, you're going to go here. Then I might play g5 and kick you out. And I trade your queen. Maybe I get in here. It's right. So Magnus decides to do it this way. Now he gets rid of this. And if this gets to an endgame, he's really screwed because he's going to lose his pawn and then black is going to promote. So he has to win. Like he has to win by mate. So what does the world champion do when he's about to checkmate somebody? He moves his king. What? King h2 is a crazy move. I would never play that. In my wildest dreams, I would never play that. Yeah, I mean, of course, you know, the engine here shows this. And not even pawn takes. Not even pawn takes. Queen takes with this idea. Magnus goes here because he's a human. Rook a2, and listen, my boy Levi was firing away. I mean, the machine was saying the position was maybe balanced. This is crazy. Like, look at my man Levi here. I told you, if this goes to an endgame, Magnus is in trouble. If the queens vanish, if you even take your eye off the ball for a moment, all right, black is getting this. That pawn is 2 squares away from queening. This is an incredibly complicated game. b4, Magnus plays c4 to make sure the bishop doesn't activate and the rook still stays defending the pawn. Now, that can be taken. It can be taken, but black has better moves. Queen c4 is a very risky decision, and if you do it, you kind of take your queen off of the key defensive squares, and you might go down. I think the best move here was something like rook a6, which is just a ridiculous move. Or, I think the engine had another idea. Knight d4, trying to activate the bishop, but then white slides out of the pin, and if you take... I'm gonna, take with my pawn or even my knight. Can consider still jumping in here with knight g6. Very, very tense position, but again, the pawns are stuck. If Magnus does not allow black in via that b pawn, everything's gonna be fine. So we have queen c4 by Levi, who's just like, what? I'm up a pawn. Bro, I'm up a pawn against Magnus. Let's go! Trash! That's why he's losing the world championship title! I'm hype. I'm up a pawn, and Magnus goes knight h6, knight g6. And it's +7. Yeah. To be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure. Like, queen c4, I don't know what exactly was missed. Maybe he just thought he was lost. Like, maybe he was like, I'm going to lose. It happens. I mean, he definitely didn't overlook this move. He probably just overlooked maybe how powerful it is. Like, maybe he was like, oh, knight g6, I take, and then if he... But... the game is actually over here. Magnus sacrifices a full knight. He's not even got any pawns for it. He's just straight up down 3 points of material. But he has calculated successfully that he is completely winning this position because you know what's unstoppable here? h6, h7 mate. That is so disgusting. Because you think you're getting mated with the knight and the queen? No, it's the pawn that walks up and you just cannot move. You are sealed off. Your queen has no access. Crazy. And this is maybe one of the reasons that king h2 needed to be played, because imagine a few moves back, right? like here, instead of king h2, we got like something, I don't know. I'm just arbitrarily, just something like this, okay? Do you know why the king had to be on h2? This man Magnus is a genius. Why does the king have to be on h2? Because after check, I'm actually getting to your king. h6, check here, and you're never mating me. And yeah. Ridiculous, right? So he had to move his king out of the way because he anticipated all of that. That's so, I mean, that's so scummy. I mean, are you kidding me? So he sacrifices the knight, and that's it. There is just no way for black to deal with this without catastrophic material loss. So he plays rook a7. He sacrifices the rook. I'm not going to yell it because it's a defensive measure. Magnus comes back with the knight with check and just slides in the queen. And he doesn't have to do this. He could have kept his foot on the gas, could have played queen e8, tried to beat things up, but he just goes here. And with the queens off, knight d6, and it's smooth sailing. The only reason this is smooth sailing is because black's b-pawns are totally stuck. So bishop c5, knight b7, a very nice idea. Rook d8 coming in. This is going to come back, and he's going to win these two pawns. This knight is stranded from the game. Rook check, bishop takes b4, and rook d1. And rook d1 is a very nice idea, simultaneously attacking the bishop on c1 and threatening knight d8. A gorgeous move. Rook d8, king here. There were some other cool ideas, like getting the rook out of the way, and knight d8 would have been a mate, like here, knight d8. That would have been cool. Knight d8, checkmate. But rook d1. And unfortunately, as good of a fight as Levi put up, he was unable to preserve he wasn't unable to secure the victory against arguably the GOAT. So both Levy and Levi are now unsuccessful in their campaigns against Magnus Carlsen. But a very interesting game. Listen, this guy should be very, very happy with this game. Of course, it's maybe no consolation of you when you lose, but 28, 29 moves. It was a very complex fight. Very complex fight. And when Magnus has to show this type of, creativity and excellence to mate you with a pawn while sacrificing material and preparing a king move. I mean, this whole attack started with the king evacuating. Like, come on, this is some genius stuff. Really, really spectacular. And yeah, that's Magnus versus Levi. And maybe tomorrow or the next day, I will make a recap of Magnus's 2 final games of being the world champion. After that, he's just going to be the highest rated player in the world. So... speaking of there being champions that might not be champions, UFC is tonight, so I will be watching Jones Gane. Don't know who's going to win. Obviously, Jones is a very controversial individual. Not the best individual. I'm going to watch that fight. Speaking of champions that stepped away from the sport, so you didn't have to know that, but now you do. Get out of here.